Let me know when. Oh, I see the live on YouTube.
Yep, we are live.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Ojai Unified School District School Board meeting. I invite you all to stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And hello to everybody, all these new faces every time. My screen is full of people. We have an emergency modification to tonight's agenda, I think. I see Laura here, and my understanding is that we are still in the process of negotiating the MOU with Valley Oak Charter. And so I'm moving to remove that agenda item for tonight, and we will add it to a future agenda meeting when those negotiations have been finished. So if there is a
So it's actually not an emergency addition, it's a changing
modification.
Okay.
Right.
I will move to modify the agenda to remove that item.
And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Michael. And we will do a roll call vote. Jane?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Thane?
Aye.
And Shelley, aye. So that passes unanimously. And now we have the approval of the rest of the agenda. We have a motion to approve the rest of the agenda.
I'll move to approve. Sorry.
I heard Thane. I'm not sure who the second person was.
I'm the seconder, Kevin.
Kevin is the seconder. Thank you. And a roll call vote again. Jane?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Thane?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
And Shelley, aye. So the agenda has been approved. There was no action taken in our closed session tonight that we just finished. And we have 2 meetings worth of minutes. So we're looking for an approval. I didn't hear of any changes needing to be made to the minutes for April 22nd or April 24th. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll move to approve, and in the same breath, I will compliment Kathy on the 422 minutes, which are very extensive.
Thank you, Michael.
I'll second.
Thank you, Thane. And a roll call vote again. Jane? Jane, you're still muted. Sorry.
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Thane?
Aye.
And Shelley? Aye. And the meetings have been approved. Tonight, I think Tiffany is going to tell us a little bit about the Value Awards, I think.
So this is our second month of our new iteration of the Values Award. So in this new model, we take our Ojai Unified School District values that are part of our mission and vision, and we always select 2 students from the district each month who represent those values. And starting last month, we have a partnership with the Ojai Rotary Club and the Peace Committee of the Ojai Rotary Club. And so they now sponsor this award. So every month we'll have 2 students. The Rotary Club will give the winning students a certificate, $50 for themselves and $50 to donate to a nonprofit of their choice. So our students who are on the call today got to select a nonprofit that they will get to give $50 to, which we're really excited about. This is a really great addition to the awards, and I think it's really fun for students. So with that, I'll just invite Becky Beckett is going to talk about our first student, Finn.
And unmute. So working with Finn has really been a joy for me and for all of his teachers. The value that I selected for that Finn represents to me is creativity, and in perhaps a different way than we're often used to thinking of it. Finn has a passion for mathematics and for physics. And in working with him over the past couple of years, what I see is he appreciates the beauty of mathematics, not just the functionality. He's not so much interested in memorizing formulas, but prefers to derive the formulas so that he can understand how it works. In an independent study format, he completed 3 years of mathematics last year, and then went on to take a math course, college algebra, at Ventura College over the summer. So in a compressed format, the college counselors tried to discourage him. They weren't sure that he really understood what he was getting into. He advocated for himself, and he scored 100% on the final exam. And he did that after his sophomore year. So his understanding and aptitude is high, but what I really have noticed and what I really enjoy in working with him is just the way that he appreciates and thinks about math and the universe. And honestly, whenever he starts to learn about a topic, even if he's not initially interested in it, he really has a passion for learning and understanding. And he's also been creative in developing his own educational path that meets his needs, that takes him outside of his comfort zone, advocating himself to take AP Calculus at Nordhoff, advocating for himself to take summer mathematics at Ventura College, and reaching out to speak to physics professors to find out about programs at different schools, so that he can develop himself and his understanding the way that he wants to. And I think he's just a great example of how creativity really fits everywhere.
Thank you so much. That I can't think of anything better than a student who advocates for themselves that way. That's amazing. I believe we have Cherie. Is she here?
I'm here. I am.
There you are. To tell us about the where Finn. Oh, well, first let's hear from Finn. I'm sorry. I wanted to hear, and then we'll hear from Cherie. Finn, do you have some things you want to say?
Thank you, Ms. Beckett, for nominating me for this reward. This means a lot to me.
And Finn, where have you chosen to donate to?
I forgot the name of it, but the charity is designed for abused mothers to escape abusive households with their children and to help them find housing.
Wow,
Awesome.
that's powerful. And Cherie's here to tell us a little bit more about that.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Finn, for being here today and accepting this award on behalf of the Rotary Club of Ojai and the Unified School District. We're really proud to partner together and honor you. This award chosen by the Unified School District values really is in line with a lot of Rotary's core values as well. So we have a 4-way test certificate that we're sending out to you along with this award, and a copy of the letter that we sent to the nonprofit of your choice, Tender Life Maternity Home. And we have a very nice letter that we've included with the check we're sending on your behalf, letting them know that you were the Rotary Student Peace Ambassador for your school. And I think that they're going to be acknowledging this in their newsletter, and I know that they'll greatly appreciate you honoring them. So thank you for everything you do, and thank you for being such a creative young man, and we appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you all. And Finn, that great job. That's pretty impressive. I believe we now have Richard Bird here to talk to us about Carly.
Hello. So a famous author once said, quiet people have the loudest minds. And while I find this true to be true in most cases, I also believe that quiet people sometimes have the loudest hearts. And I can think of no other student of mine with the loudest heart than Carly Echeverria. I've had the good fortune of teaching Carly for both 4th and 5th grades. In the 2 years since she first entered our classroom, I was immediately struck not only by her quiet manner and her gentle approach to learning, but her inclusive nature, both inside and outside the classroom. That is why I'm honored and proud to honor her with this Values Recognition Award. Whether or not she knows it or whether or not she would care to admit it, Carly has contributed to our school community's creation of an environment of inclusivity. Carly takes her academic success very seriously, but she also takes the academic success of her classmates seriously as well. She is always willing to work with anyone and everyone in class. Furthermore, she will drop everything she is doing during math in order to peer tutor students who may be struggling. Her willingness to accept others extends beyond the classroom as well. As one of the older students to be found in our after-school Cub Club, I often find her taking on the role of mentor to the younger students that are in after-school care. It's this willingness and her natural caregiving ability that belies her quiet nature and proves a level of self-reliance that most students her age do not yet possess. Lastly, Carly is very giving of her time, and throughout the course of her school week, she generously volunteers her recess, volunteering in Miss Plott's class in order to help out one of her favorite teachers. Carly is selfless and giving in unimaginable ways that help to foster inclusivity in our campus community. So Carly, I'm very proud of everything that you've accomplished in these 2 years since I've met you. I am proud of everything you continue to accomplish, and I will be proud of everything you will accomplish in the future. So thank you very much for being who you are.
Thank you for that. And I believe Shuri has a certificate for Carly, and will tell us about where that donation's going to.
Yes, I do. And I can tell that both of these students honored today truly exemplify what we call the 4-way test. After listening to your teachers talk a little bit about you, I just want to say that the 4-way test will be included in your packet, and it reads like this. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? So truly the two of you exemplify that. So thank you again. And Carly, we have sent a check and a letter on your behalf to your chosen nonprofit, which is near to my heart because my son's a coral reef biologist. It's going to the Channel Islands Marine and Wildlife Institute. So nice job.
And Carly, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you.
Thank you for being here with us tonight. Congratulations. And congratulations to you too, Finn. We're very proud to have you guys as part of our district.
And then you are welcome to stay on, students, but you don't have to. If you would like to leave the meeting, no one will be offended.
And now we'd like to recognize our volunteer of the month as well.
I will take this one. Normally our volunteers are chosen by our sites, but volunteerism is a little limited in our sites since March. So I selected Vicki Carlton Byrne because she has been making masks for staff in the district. She Vicki, I'm waving at you. I have not met Vicki. She was making masks on Facebook, and I reached out to her and asked if she could potentially make masks for school district staff. We have been serving meals Monday, Wednesday, Friday since the beginning, and we have 100 people at any given time that are rotating in and out, and it's hard to find masks, or they were wearing the, uncomfortable masks. And so Vicky stepped up and she made a bag, and then she made another bag, and she said, do you want some kid masks? And we had those. And so we were able to supply all of our teams out there with masks. So Vicky is our volunteer of the month for helping us to be able to continue with our nutrition services and all the things that we're doing for kids at the school site. So thank you very much, Vicky.
Thank you,
Thank
Vicky.
you. I'm really honored and a little embarrassed by the intention, but I also really appreciate the opportunity to do something useful. It's really easy. And this time I was telling Kathy and David that it's easy to sit back and feel useless and helpless. I really appreciate everything you all are doing on the front lines to provide some continuity in this enormous interruption in our lives, probably the worst in our lifetime. And what you do for the kids, and it's really gratifying to just feel like I'm doing something that helps. So let me know if you need any more, and thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, good news, Vicky. We need 2,700 masks a day when we come back to the fall. So I'm glad you offered.
I'll get right on it. You can see my machine here.
We'll be in touch.
Thank you so much, Vicky. And thank you for being here tonight.
Thanks. I'll get back to it, and hope to see you all around town sometime.
Great.
Nice to meet you.
That brings us to public comment, and I believe there's at least one public comment.
You have one public comment. Do you have it, Shelley, or should
I can pull it up really quickly.
That's what I was doing as well. We'll see who gets to it first.
Okay. Okay, I've got it. You ready?
Win.
This is a public comment from Angie Genesi speaking on behalf of herself, I believe, as a teacher, not OFT. General public comment. I want to thank both Tiffany and Cheryl for providing professional growth experiences for the certificated staff this fall and winter, specifically sending 2 different teams of administrators and teachers to the Solution Tree conferences on professional learning communities. This specific professional growth couldn't have come at a better time. With the pandemic and resulting school closures, what we learned about being a professional community at these conferences and how to address all of our students' needs, but specifically those students who are falling behind, will be even more crucial than ever in how we work together as educators. Because we were at that conference and are now considered part of Solution Tree, we are often sent follow-up webinars. Several of us just today took one of those webinars, and it was so well done and so pertinent that we have encouraged the rest of the group to sign in and take part as well, and many of them have done just that. This webinar was on what we can do right now in our planning to address the learning gaps we are going to see next year. Without that focus on professional growth and the willingness to get us to these conferences, we would have less capacity to face the challenges before us. So thank you, Tiffany and Cheryl. For today, I'm breathing just a little bit easier.
I'm signed up for that webinar tomorrow, so. As are a bunch of our.
I am too.
Yeah, good.
And as far as I know, that's the only public comment to read out tonight.
And Becky and Richard, you're of course welcome to stay, but your part is over as well. So if you are have other things to do, or you can watch us live if you so choose. But
and
Thank
thank you
you
both for being here and bringing us those great kids. So now we have our student advisory.
I would just like to comment. We did receive an email from Dimitri. I don't know if that was meant as a public comment.
I don't think it was, and I responded to him that we can't add an emergency item, but that we would talk to him within the next week. My understanding is or the way I read it is he was asking to add an emergency item, which we're just not able to do. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So that takes us to our Student Advisory Council, and I see Ella's here. Hi, Ella, how are you?
Pretty good. Can you guys hear me okay?
Well,
Sounds like your Wi-Fi is a little.
I'm yeah.
I do
Can
actually
I
want.
turn off my video so that might help a little bit?
You know what? Ella, come to me.
Okay.
Also,
Then I'll leave here and then, okay.
I think we can confirm when she gets down to the other computer, but I think we decided she was going to wait until we actually discussed the Matilaha wheel.
Did you not want me to talk about my experience? I don't mind.
Okay. We'll have you go as soon as you get there.
Okay.
Shelley, did you want to maybe let either Chuck or Angie go first while she's moving, or?
I would, I don't know if are we legally allowed to do that? Because it's changing the agenda structure.
All right.
I guess
I
we can.
think
She's here.
she's right, yeah. She's fast. Speedy girl.
Well, okay. I was just gonna say a few things just about my experience with the Zoom and online learning. So far, also, I've talked to a lot of my friends about it, and so far we've all been really happy. And it's obviously different, and it's kind of difficult to transition, especially with our own focus and time management. But I just wanted to say that we really appreciate the teachers putting in a lot of effort, because it's been kind of difficult to focus, but a lot of our teachers understand, and it's been pretty nice to be able to talk to them and connect with them over Zoom as well. So yeah.
Thanks, Ella. And then it sounds like you're going to stick around and talk about at least one or two of the items coming up. Is that correct? Okay, great. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to Chuck Crawford, our president of CSEA. Hi, Chuck.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I have something to learn there from Ella, how fast she got from Wi-Fi to the computer. So, well, I want to start out with a big thank you. I know with CSCA, we're looking at all the changes, and I want to start out with in taking care of someone else's children, which is what all of us classified do in some capacity. This agenda is somewhat painful tonight to see all of the people losing positions due to lack of funds. And I know some people take that personally, but it's not about their skills. It's more about the funds. And we know funds is an issue next week with the different budgets and that. I've mentioned several times about the collaboration with the district, and I just want to emphasize that. I really like the way that Shelley runs the meetings and keeps things on task. Mike Shanahan, I really appreciate you discussing how important it is that the unions are working with the district despite the difficulties that we've all experienced for so many years. And Jane, I really appreciate your comment with reference to Ohio is unique, in reference to the 6% for the real estate people. Thank you for acknowledging the uniqueness of Ohio. And just like Ella's report, I don't know of other schools that are doing those things, having the kids so involved. And Kevin, I appreciate you reading the classified resolution, acknowledging our classified employees here in the district. And your comments about fiduciary, I know you take that seriously. And I appreciate the whole board doing such a fine job asking the difficult questions and the difficult actions to take place. And I couldn't leave Thane out because he always discusses both sides of any issue and seems to keep us laughing despite what the topics are. So with the CSEA, we're struggling with all of the uncertainties here locally as well as at the state levels, the timelines, and as the student represented there, what online learning is all about or not. So as we look forward, I ask that we look forward with collaboration as we've done in the past. And I thank you. I think I've already taken up my 3 minutes, and last week with the hurdles and doors, that was 7 minutes. So I'll stop here. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you very much, Chuck. We always appreciate hearing from you.
Thank you.
That brings us to Angie Janesi, our OFT president.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I am Angie Janesi, and I am the president of the Ojai Federation of Teachers. I just want to let you know what's happening with the teachers and where we are at. First of all, Tiffany, thank you so much, or whoever, David, thank you for the gallery view. It's so much easier to speak when I'm talking to all of you. It feels a little more natural. So I wanted to let you know what we're doing. Right now, OFT is in the middle of our election for our executive council. We will run that election for the rest of the week and then see where we land for our officers for this coming year. Our greatest concerns right now are what everyone else is concerned about. We're concerned about the budget, and we are concerned about reopening. I think, as I said to Cheryl before the meeting started, I don't know, she probably got 5 or 6 emails from me today because I am trying to breathe. And I know that all of my colleagues are feeling the same way. We're overwhelmed with doing distance learning now and knowing, just trying to feel like we're doing a good job, and that we still have a relationship with our students and our families. And besides that relationship, we're really all concerned about whether our kids are getting educated or not. So that's where we're at. I know that we are going to be looking at the budget starting next week. I know that we are all looking at what solutions there are for reopening. And that's where we're at. I think it's the same place we were at last week, is just trying to breathe and make sure that we put one foot in front of the other every day and move forward with our jobs. So thank you.
Thank you. And speaking as a parent, not just as a board member, but I know our kids appreciate seeing their teachers' smiling faces on Zoom, and that every day you show up and are there and smiling, and it's much appreciated. And now our superintendent's report.
Okay, I have a PowerPoint, so unfortunately I'm going to go back to share screen. And let's see. So you should be able to see that. So I'll go relatively quickly. I have 4 priorities I want to kind of share with you. Everything that we're doing kind of falls into these priorities. If it doesn't, then it's really not a priority for us. We are kind of at maximum capacity to try and get through these things that I'm going to share with you now. So our first priority is finishing the school year. That looks like distance learning, making sure that, like Angie was saying, we're connecting with students, that our teachers have everything they need. We are also working on identifying and contacting students who have not checked in or who are not completing work. It looks like we have about 50 of those students at the high school, somewhere between 75 and 100 at the middle school. Some who have just totally not checked in, and then some who aren't completing work. So we are, teachers are reaching out specifically to those students. We're calling them, the office is calling them. We may end up doing home visits if we have not reached anyone. So we're trying to connect with those students who have just really not been able to connect with us in any way. We're working on graduation and promotions. That is a really big topic, and with lots of logistical hurdles that come with that, as well as kind of our senior recognition. And then just all of the things that regularly come with end of the year. So checking back in all of the materials that kids have, cleaning out lockers, all of the awards that come at the end of the year, all of those kinds of things. So that's our first priority. And these, by the way, aren't necessarily in order. We're doing them all simultaneously, but I put them in order just because that's how they came up. So summer school, we rolled out our summer school catalog yesterday. I am very, very proud of the classes that we have. There are many classes that we've never had in this valley before. There's options for students. just a few here. We have dance at every level, theater, I think at every level, intro to Japanese language, stop motion animation, lots of really interesting classes. We're unsure yet if the classes will be a hybrid version where small groups of students come for a short period of time during the day. Most districts are not doing any in-person instruction. It might be an opportunity for us to practice some of the things that we might roll out in the fall. So we have very small summer school classes. We have limited students on campus. We could work to see what it would be like if we have groups of 10 students or groups of 12 students potentially coming in a rotating schedule. And we might be able to work out some of the kinks in summer school before we roll into a fall implementation. To be determined if that's possible or not, but that's something that we're kind of thinking about. The catalog came out yesterday. We had 75 people enroll overnight and continuing to see people throughout the day. So we're excited for those opportunities for kids. Of course, as everyone has mentioned, we have a lot of budget work coming out. So we are spending this week really prioritizing the work that we have to do around the budget. We have a budget workshop with capital advisors next week. I've been sitting in on budget workshops pretty much every day in some capacity or another. We have a budget committee next week on May 22nd, and then we have the board workshop probably on the 26th, if that's what you vote on later in this meeting. Finally, our priority is reopening and planning for reopening. The logistical concerns around reopening are truly daunting. It is a massive task. We can't do that alone. So we have put out reopening committees, or a reopening committee with subcommittees. Those start on Friday. We have 5 reopening committees. I put out 4 and I got a suggestion for a 5th one. So we'll be looking at daily bell schedules, what that might possibly look like, safety, so including personal protective equipment, what do we need to order? I was not joking when I say we could need 2,400 masks a day if kids are coming back and we have to, switch out the masks every day. Those are not inexpensive. So is that our solution? What else could we look at? Lysol wipes and, or not Lysol, but whatever wipes, like there's just so many things to think about in terms of safety, distance learning and what that looks like. Do we want to continue with the platforms that we're currently using? And what does that look like? How can we support that? Specialty classes, what does ceramics look like next year? What does PE look like next year? What about sports periods? So really having some discussions about what we can do there, and then having a committee that's looking at mental health and other support for students. So trying to really get our heads around part of the problem or the challenge of this is, and everybody has this, but we can't turn things around. And even though we're small and nimble, if we don't order masks now, we won't get them in the fall. If we don't order thermometers now, which we already did, but we won't get them, right? So we really have to plan for and purchase now for things to be available in the fall and the summer. We can't do this work in July or August when we know what the restrictions are going to look like. That's part of why you see the USCs and the CSUs and the UCs going to online learning, because the ramp up time is just significant. And so we're doing this work now, and it might look completely different in 3 months, or it might not. So that's kind of our challenge. And I appreciate what Angie is saying. I'm not going to say I sleep particularly well at night right now, because this is just massive. But we have 50 people signed up to do this work with us on Friday. So I'm really excited and proud to have a team of people working through all of these and all the great minds that come with that. Another piece to share with you, today we announced a new program called Landed. Landed is a company that works in really high cost, expensive to live real estate areas. And they work exclusively with education, and they help homeowners, home buyers put down a part of their down payment. So if you need to save 20% for down payment, for a lot of people, that's just unreasonable, right? 20% of a starter home at $500,000, right, is a lot of money. And so Landed will invest half of that down payment for district employees. And then when the home is sold or refinanced, they take half of the profit or loss. It may not work for everyone, but it's an option. It was not available in Ventura County. I saw them at a conference and I reached out to them to see if they would come here. They said, no, we're not coming just for Ojai. So I reached out to the county, and the county had a few meetings with them, and they said, well, we'll come for the entire county. So this program is now available as of today to all of Ventura County School District employees. So we're excited for that. If we can help some folks buy homes in our community, that's good for everyone. And then standing ovations, as always. So I will not read all of these standing ovations, but I would like to thank Linda Jordan for putting all of the photos in for me. So Jason McCoy, we had a CHP inspection, and our inspection was flawless. We have never gotten a flawless before, and it was due to Jason's efforts and of course Cindy Sloan's efforts as well. So a big, huge shout out to Jason for helping us with that. Chantal and Haley. Haley's our new nurse. She's so new, we don't have a photo of her to include in this standing ovation, but they have been there every day, or every day we've been open at Matilaha to hand out food and just really engaging with our students who come by. The student, Matilaha is not a huge pickup point for meals, but it is a pickup point for students who need things, middle school students. So they will come by Matilaha and just ask for all kinds of things. I was there the other day and somebody needed something printed, and these two have been helping to make sure that happens every day. So we're happy and proud of them at Matilaha. We have Julie Chesson, who has just been doing a tremendous job keeping nutrition services running. As I may have told you, other schools have significantly cut back, other districts have cut back their nutrition services, and we are not. We're the only district that's serving at every school site, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, through spring break, from the day we close till the end of school. So that would not happen without Julie. We have Carson Brown. You've seen Carson up here again. Carson does a great job for us, and we have another employee who's thanking him for his work. We have Maribel, who has just been fantastic at Miners Oaks with reaching out to families, lunch distribution, raft program, basically anything that's out there, she is helping to make sure that it's successful. We're really proud of her work. And I think I've mentioned this before, but I send emails to these folks the day of the board meeting and let them know they got an award. They come to you, we put them on the website, and then we send them a certificate in the mail. So that's kind of the process here. We have Craig Andrews, Danon Plott, who is another teacher for us, was listening in on her son's class and had some really great things to say about how Craig is connecting with students. So we wanted to thank you for his efforts. And you know, Zoom meetings are hard. It's hard to be engaging in Zoom meetings. So when we have teachers that are really connecting with kids, we're happy to see that. Suzanne Lovelady at Miramani, who's been going above and beyond. This is from a parent. She cares about her students, makes them feel special. Natalie Hay. Annalisa Cohen, you may not know Annalisa Cohen. She's relatively new and part-time. She's a science teacher at Nordhoff, and she's thanking Natalie for all of the work that she's been doing to help her as a new teacher and just with the science department in general. Everybody is a little sad that Natalie is moving back to elementary next year, and they're going to miss her at Nordhoff, but have some lucky elementary teams that will get to work with her. Becky Beckett, Becky is a mentor for the induction program with many of our teachers, which is a really critical role for us so that we can make sure that new teachers in the district feel supported. They know how to best teaching, best pedagogy practices, and just really have someone to connect with in the district. And so Becky is this person, and Sarita is grateful for her assistance. Denise Rimba and Joyce Young, this is from Dave Munson. They again have been at Nordhoff pretty much every day. We're open, handing out Chromebooks, handing out hotspots, making sure that kids have everything that they need to learn. And then another one, which is Denise and Joyce and Bronwyn, they also have been doing our senior experience committee and all the great things that are going to be happening for seniors. And you'll see more about that in my presentation about graduation. So thank you to those three. the entire Nordhoff SPED department, who has been serving students in a really incredible way. Special education was one of those huge lifts where when this first happened, we all thought, oh, how are we going to make this happen? And we make it happen because we have amazing staff that's working really hard day in and day out with students through running IEPs and making sure that students have the services that they need. And then Shauna in nutrition services. And this is, I love when we get them from community members. So Pat Fay, thanking Shauna for being so friendly and smiling. And I have the same experience whenever I see Shauna. And then one last one for A Place to Grow. I don't know if you follow A Place to Grow on Facebook. They are engaging and fun and have all kinds of great things going on for our youngest students in the district. And so we're really grateful for A Place to Grow and all of the work that they do into connecting with our preschool students. Angie's mentioned that kindergarten is hard to connect with. Preschool is also a challenge, or can be a challenge for us. So we're grateful to have an amazing team that's working on that. Oh, okay, I'm going backwards. So now I will stop, and that concludes my superintendent's report.
Thank you. It seems like there's more and more of those each month. That
Yeah.
People are really recognizing each other. I think that's wonderful. We are now at our presentations, and we have John Isom here tonight with us. Welcome, John, to talk to us about a potential general obligation bond measure. Hi, John. Oh, we still can't hear you. You're still muted. There.
How about now?
Yes, now we're good.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thane, I want to be where you are. That looks pretty. Good evening, everybody. It is great to see you. Certainly unique circumstances, it goes without saying, but I appreciate the advances in technology that allow us to have these kinds of conversations. So I just wanted to take a few minutes really and give you some of our points of view on what's going on right now and what the options are for the district. And then I answer any questions that you guys have. And hopefully I have the answers to those questions, but certainly can research them as well. So first off, the most obvious question is what are districts doing, that we're contemplating November 2020? There are a couple of interesting things that happened. Coronavirus, certainly. And then we had an interesting March of 2020 election. I don't know how much you got into the details and the data and the results, but suffice it to say, it was not a great day for school bonds. However, with tremendous data and research, and there were so many examples of what was going on, we feel like we really pinpointed what the issues were. And believe it or not, it was not coronavirus to blame. It wasn't voter fatigue or tax fatigue or a number of these other considerations, but really it was Prop 13 and what came out of Prop 13, which was this confusion among voters, this belief that somehow Prop 13 was going to alter the 1978 Prop 13 and caused significant losses up and down the state. Didn't matter, where you were. Certainly a Republican leaning district fared much worse than those that were Democratic leaning, for example. But the numbers were shocking. And we calculated it to be about a 10 to 12% hit to school bonds. So when people think or ask, oh, we shouldn't go because the voters are totally upset and they just don't want to vote for school bonds anymore, I don't believe that. The numbers don't bear that out. So we do have a lot of districts that are still considering going and still considering going again. Those that failed and got 54%, based on our analysis, we said, hey, you had 10, 12%, you really would have been in the mid 60s if not for this Prop 13. But what we do have is the reality on the ground, which is coronavirus and the impact that has. And we also have the potential for a real adjustment to to the Prop 13 way of collecting taxes. You guys may be familiar with the split roll that's being discussed. Signatures have been gathered, signatures have been verified, and that very well may be on the ballot in November. And that's a concern. Our view is if people voted no for a lot of school bonds because they thought Prop 13 was going to be touched, imagine when they know it's going to be touched and there's going to be funded opposition against something like that split roll proposal. So that's one consideration, one thing to be mindful of. The overall advice that I have for you, that we have for everybody else, is sit tight. No one's forcing you to make a decision now. There is still data that is forthcoming and still conversations that should be had. There's certainly a whole host of benefits for districts that might be fortunate enough to pass a bond in November 2020, the least of which is the lowest interest rates in history, which means either a lower tax rate for taxpayers or more money for the district for projects. Certainly the benefit of low construction costs, because contractors are going to be hungry. There's going to be less projects out there. Certainly, that's what came out of the Great Recession, as we saw, was that districts got tremendous deals in financing their facilities. So you've got that double whammy, that double benefit that does exist, but ultimately it depends on whether or not you could even pass a measure, right? We're not going to put something on that's going to fail. So what do we do now? There are districts that are doing surveys. Your neighbor, Ventura Unified, is starting a survey tonight. What I like about that is that, like you, they did a survey in the fall, in November. They have a benchmark by which we can judge. And we're asking about half of the questions are identical to what we asked back in the fall. And so we'll be able to get a pretty good read as to the appetite of voters in Ventura Unified as to whether or not they should go or shouldn't go. Some people would say, you're crazy. Why would we go now? That's crazy talk. Where others like myself would say, you know what, if you look back in history, there are a number of indicators and data points to suggest that it's not crazy and that there might be an appetite to go forward. So I do want to share a couple of those with you. 9/11, that was one of those kind of an earth-shattering geopolitical event, certainly in America, but I think worldwide, but definitely in America. 9/11 happened, and the following November, a few months later, every single school bond passed, 100% success rate. So to me, there's evidence that an earth-shattering type event doesn't necessarily foretell doom for school bonds on the same ballot. Another major event certainly was the Great Recession. That was significant, that was massive, that was certainly a long period of time. And the Great Recession that happened in late 2008 October, we had a number of subsequent elections. We had November of 2010, we had June of 2010, we had November of 2008, which to me, we weren't quite there yet in the Great Recession, although certainly people were concerned. You had November of 2012. So a couple of data points for you on that. In June of 2010 and November 2010 and June of 2012, the success of school bonds were 75%, 74%, and 75% respectively. And then that November of 2012, we went up to 85%. And then there's been a number of, plus 90%. 2016 presidential, for example, is 96% success. So even with the Great Recession, a lot of districts were successful doing bonds, to the tune of about 3 out of 4. Does that mean Ohio Unified can pass a bond? I have no idea. But we know that other districts, be it economic hardship, be it geopolitical uncertainty, have been successful. And so if the district is wanting to consider still going, I think I would leave that door open. The options that you have, I think, as far as OHI goes, is continuing to have, or maybe restarting conversations with your community leaders to say, hey, what do you think of the idea? You know, what does the mayor think? What does the Chamber of Commerce think? What does the union, think, the principals, and get some qualitative feedback. That's definitely recommended. And you can either do a tracking poll similar to what Ventura is doing, in which case we could go out quickly and survey your voters in Ojai, or you could get a sense from these other communities that are doing surveys, like Ventura Unified. I've got another survey that's happening this weekend for a district in the Central Valley, not nearly as close to a Ventura demographic, but a demographic nonetheless of a district that's already passed bonds. So those are essentially kind of the approach or the advice that I would have for you guys, is to keep the door open and continue to have conversations with your community, and either do a tracking poll or do, or borrow, so to speak, the results from the tracking poll of some of your neighboring districts and other districts that are doing it. You have until basically the first week in July, so time is short, but if we miss the 2020, then you reset to 2022. And that might be fine, and that might be appropriate for you guys as a district, but just so you know what other districts are considering, that's what they're looking at it. And I will say this, I think if the split roll were to go on the ballot, that alone would probably be enough for me to recommend you not go. You're not Berkeley, you don't have, I think the ability to withstand a significant push that just says bonds are bad, property tax attacks are bad, especially in the environment that we find ourselves in now. So that even if the Ventura survey looks good, even if your conversations look good, if that split roll were to be on the ballot, I would have a tough time given your survey results where you're, low 60s. I would have a tough time assuming that you guys could overcome a split roll attack, just based on what we saw with the Prop 13 in March. So that's a lot of information. Happy to take any questions that you guys have, and glad to be a part of tonight's board meeting.
John, I have one question. With the super low interest rates, do you anticipate, however, in the real market, that, because of obviously massive dislocations and loss of underlying revenues in cities and municipalities and so forth, that the bonds would actually command or require a higher interest rate than the so-called market rate?
Yeah, great question, Kevin. To be honest, school districts in the Great Recession, were really in the catbird seat. Other municipalities stopped issuing debt because most city debt, county debt, it's revenue driven. And when they feel like revenues aren't there to support it, they're not going to sell bonds. What's been happening now is a flight to quality, which means leave the stock market, leave mutual funds, even leave corporate bonds, because generally people say, oh, stocks are risky, bonds are safe. How many of you would want to buy a Southwest Airlines bond or a Princess Carnival Cruise bond? Not a lot of you, even though they're commanding double-digit returns if you want to take your chances. So people are flocking away from even bonds, and the safest place you can go is treasuries, which has always been super safe, but the 10 and 20 and 30-year treasuries are paying literally nothing, or municipalities, which is you. Even rating agencies like Standard & Poor's and Moody's, they rate sectors, and there is a tourism sector and an energy sector and an airlines sector and a government sector. All of the sectors, with the exception of you, meaning the government sectors, are all kind of negative credit watch. Just a big beware. There's a lot of uncertainty. Government, less so. So what's happened, Kevin, is that all of these billions and billions of dollars have been pouring out of, you know, the stock market and have been pouring into bonds. And the big winners are municipalities. And it continues to drive those rates lower and lower and lower. We're at the lowest rates in history, period, end of story, just because people would rather get some return above the treasuries, which are nothing, while still feeling that super level of safety that GO bonds, for example, offer. So it's a heyday right now. It's just, it's crazy. It's just, oh, you know, we sold $80 million at 2%. Not a bad day if you're an issuer to get $80 million and you're only paying, you know, 2%. So I think there's that's the opportunity that I think exists. But again, you have to have your voters be willing to support you on it.
John, I have a question. Is our only option to issue a new bond, or is there another option?
Yeah, so, you know, many of you guys are aware that historically we've refunded your bonds when interest rates got low enough. We refunded bonds in 2011, 2012, and those bonds are close to being able to be refunded, but we're not quite there yet, Tiffany. We'd have to get below 2%. And that $80 million 2% that I told you about was early March, was the lowest of the lowest of the lows, and we're a bit above that. So we would need to get back down, not quite to the lowest of the lows, but we would need to maybe have another 20 basis point reduction in rates for some of those old bonds to make sense. So that's something, if the opportunity is available, and we can save your property taxpayers, you know, more money like we've done historically when the opportunity presents itself, then we'll do it. But right now we're not quite there yet on the refunding.
Right, John, sorry, my video glitched when you first started. So I got the first part, and you're welcome to visit anytime if you like quarantines. But my question was, when do we need to make a decision about November? And how much information would we have about the status of the other ballot initiatives?
Yeah, so deadline thing would be first week in July.
Okay.
And that means a resolution adopted by a supermajority of the sitting board, which means 4, would need to be adopted and submitted by that first week. You could literally do it. You could have a special board meeting in the morning and turn in the paperwork that afternoon. So we've got, you know, just under 2 months. I will have Ventura's data within a week. I will have the Central Valley's district data within 10 days. So all of that information would be available to you. But I can't stress enough the importance for you guys to kind of have some of the conversations with, you know, key people on the ground in Ojai. What does the chamber think? What does the unions think? What does the elected officials think?
And the Prop 13 ballot initiative, will that have qualified or not by June 1st?
I believe the answer is yes. The latest I heard yesterday was that they're going to go through with it. This is a signature voter initiative, so it is not in the hands of the legislature. And what that really means is it, you know, CTA, who's driving this boat, has the ultimate say. And I go forward, even though, you know, survey data and what we saw in March, you know, to me foretells doom for them if they try. But that have they'll qualify, and it'll just be, should we do it? Sure, let's go and submit the paperwork, and then you have it.
I think it's California.
Sorry.
Just answer to Shelley's question. California Taxpayers Association, right, John?
California, no, CTA, the teachers union.
Teachers Association, right?
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, they are the driver behind the split roll initiative, that it essentially would charge market rates for industrial and commercial properties above above $3 million, and then residential, farming, and small commercial and retail properties below 3 million would stay under the traditional Prop 13. But if you've looked at Facebook leading up to that March election, people didn't care. It's just straight up, this is an attack on Prop 13, and the whole world they all freaked out, for lack of a better term. I'll tell you one funny sidebar, because it's short and sweet. But you know how these elections have a ballot title, and if you go online and Measure O for Ojai School Improvement Measure, right? They just assign you a little bit of a ballot title. In Lassen County, bless their hearts, Prop 13, which remind you is a school statewide facilities improvement bond. Lassen County said Prop 13 suspension, which of course, there's a reason that Lassen County only approved Prop 13 at 18% yes, when traditionally they're at 40%. So the big fear is that, there's going to be real money put behind it. There's opposition behind it. And if Facebook and Instagram and kind of the flurry of misinformation can defeat a lot of school bonds, and a statewide school bond at Prop 13, I don't like their chances of doing it with $100 million in opposition from the California Business Roundtable, for example.
Yeah, John, my follow-up was, if there's still uncertainty about some of these issues, if we were to approve it June 1st, would we have a month or two to maybe pull it without incurring ballot costs or that sort of thing?
Yeah, you would, Thane. There is an opportunity to rescind it. I have to say, I had a little disappointment in the folks at Ventura County Elections Office, because I tried to appeal and say, hey, you know what? There's a lot of counties that are under the circumstance with coronavirus. They're letting people submit their property tax, later than the April 10th deadline. There's allowances given what's going on. It would make Ojai and Ventura and some of our clients, it would really help if they had another month just to help assess things. Can you push it back to August 7th like the rest of the state? Because it's just you, Santa Barbara, and El Dorado counties, I think, that have this extra long time period. But I couldn't get any traction with them. It was, we need time to print the sample ballots and da-da-da-da. And I'm like, LA County and Orange County, everyone else does it in this time frame. But there is a period of time that would allow for a resolution to be rescinded. But you would need to turn something in by that first week in July time period.
And I just wanted to reiterate, I'm not sure where Thane went, but that it's July 1st, that we have a month and a half, not June 1st, which is in a couple weeks, right?
Yeah, if I said June, I apologize. It's the
No, I think Thane kept saying June, and I just wanted to make sure that he heard July.
Correct. Although I don't see him hearing July.
Yeah, and I'm not sure where he went. So that's technology for you. Are there other questions from the board? Are there other districts besides Ventura that we should be looking at? I remember when you were here last time, there were a few other districts who were looking to put a bond on the ballot also.
Yeah, Mupu is looking. So you'd be kind of flanked, bookended, I guess, by two of your neighbors. Their scenarios is a little trickier. Maybe it's not trickier, to be honest. It's obviously tough with a very small district to get a good sample size. So we're going to rely heavily on just community feedback. And I know that Cheryl, superintendent there, really wants to invite folks just to do a simple tour of the facilities. Even though I said you can do a virtual tour, because I walked it myself and took a bunch of facility photos. But they're going to have to rely a lot more on kind of the the art of things, the qualitative, just comments, feedback from key families. Whereas a Ventura, while that's important as well, we'll have more data and statistics to help guide them. And you're kind of in between, right? I mean, probably tougher to get the same number of survey respondents as a Ventura, but you're going to get a lot more than you would if you were, MUPU. But those are the two right now in Ventura that are considering going.
Great, thank you. And thank you for all that information.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions, or are we ready to move on? Thank you, John, for being with us tonight. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Good to see you all, and we'll share with you data as we get it.
Great, thanks so much. Good night.
Okay. Good night, guys.
So 6.2 is our update on graduation events.
And if you give me just a moment, I will pull up, I have a PowerPoint for you to pull up. That is hiding for just a moment. So while I'm doing this, I would just, Dave Munson is here. And I don't know, Dave, if you have enough internet for your camera to be on, but Dave and I have been kind of working on this. I made the PowerPoint, but Dave will be able to talk us through a lot of the details of this. And if you give me.
Okay, can you guys hear me pretty clearly now?
I'm going to share my screen so you can see the PowerPoint as we just go along, so you can see some of the. Give me. I think I get everything already, and then sometimes it just disappears. So I'll just start actually, Dave, and then I'll turn it over to you. So I had a long conversation today with James Vega, the city manager, because it's a little tricky to track the regulations between city regulations, county regulations, and state regulations, and that everybody seems to be kind of changing on a regular basis. So I wanted to check in and see, as of today, what are our requirements? And Dave Munson and I have not had a chance to reconnect since I had that conversation. So I'll jump in and share throughout. But essentially, as of today, all large gatherings are banned unless you live in Modoc County. And large public gatherings are part of the phase 4 of the state reopening plan. So as a reminder, we're kind of in phase 2 right now. We are in phase 2. There's different places of phase 2, but we're in the early stages of phase 2. Expectations are that the state will not reach phase 4 to 6 to 12 months. And kind of the criteria for that people are talking about is either herd immunity or a vaccine available. So there is basically no possibility of having a large traditional graduation. And Dave and I have talked about this. It's heartbreaking for our seniors. It's no one wants this. We want to do the best we can for them. We can't imagine not being able to graduate with their friends, not being able to see their teachers, not being able to see their school again. But the reality is it's just not going to be possible for the foreseeable future. We did have some feedback early on about, well, could you do a graduation in November? One, I don't know that will be possible. And two, we have students who go into the military or go away and they might not be available to come back at that time. So up and down the state, there are really only 3 options for graduation ceremonies. And they're all some variation of either a virtual graduation. There are a few companies out there that do these. They're fairly expensive, and they're kind of a slideshow, and there's some virtual, some real-time things happening, but everybody's watching. There are car-based ceremonies, and the car-based ceremonies come out of the requirements of what's possible right now. So in the current regulations, any gatherings outside of 10 people have to be based in cars, and you have to have the windows up. So that's where the car-based graduation ceremonies come from. And then small group, which at this moment today seems to be 10 or less. There's some anticipation that might open up, but again, just like when we're planning for the fall, we're not sure when and what that looks like. So I'll let Dave talk through this slide about our surveys and what we've done so far.
Okay.
All your slide clicker, so just tell me when you want to go to the next slide.
Okay, so what you're going to see on the following slides is actually the second survey that we put out. The first one we put out early on was to get a sense of students' and families' preferences for a virtual ceremony, and it was really clear that they did not like the idea of a virtual ceremony. But again, this was early on when they still felt like either in late July or in August that there was a possibility of having the traditional all class in-person ceremony in the stadium with the families. But now that has since not become an available option. So we decided to look at some of these other options that Tiffany just mentioned. As she changes slides.
Keep going. I'm also trying to
Okay.
let Jane in. So I'm going to do a couple of things at the same time here.
Okay. So, some of these options came from the very first survey. We also provided a comment section when we talked about the options of virtual ceremony versus in-person ceremony. And so some of these options come from that survey. Some have just been provided in the meantime, in between. Some, are coming from community members, some from faculty. So we put together these options and sent it out to senior students and their families recently. And you can, as Tiffany goes through these, the first one was trying to keep everybody in their car, kind of doing a parade. A car parade similar to what we did during our homecoming Mardi Gras type parade, but trying to keep everybody in their vehicles to honor the social distancing orders, and that was not very popular. The other one that was a little bit more popular but still not receiving majority was a similar idea, but with the students walking outside 6 feet apart in a similar parade manner. The third one, this was just the small groups, and we like the idea of kids having that experience of walking across the stage, having their name read, and so this is where some of these other options 3 through 5 are coming in. But the small one was not very favorable because again, the students themselves were really stressing how much they wanted to be together with their classmates, and groups of 3 to 5 was not appealing to them. We put an option out there where all the students could be together. And again, this was before, really getting a better understanding of the large group gathering restrictions. And even this one doesn't seem even plausible, regardless of the survey results, of having all 160 graduates in the stadium and live streaming it for parents. But the only one that did get any kind of majority favor was dividing the graduating class into groups. But again, just based on the information Tiffany shared, this doesn't seem like a very viable option, even if we're thinking groups of 40, like dividing the class up into fourths, which were for 160 students, we would be looking at 40 students per ceremony. But that doesn't seem like a viable option according to the large group gathering prohibition.
So I'll take this. So at some point we have to move forward with the best possible option. And so I just wanted to kind of break this into what we know. So what we know is we have to do something outside. We can't use the gym. Given the current regulations, we can only be outside. Group limits are currently 10. They may go up. So we could potentially have a group of 2 or 3 students if they had a very small, 1 or 2 family members, or we could just have essentially a per family graduation with less than 10. Whatever we do, we have to have social distance protocols. So we would be recommending masks. As you know, the city of Ojai is one of the few cities that's requiring masks. So we would be recommending masks. Whatever we do, we'll have to have multiple ceremonies. So we'll have video speeches and performances done ahead of time so that students can have that experience. But we'll limit the number of people on stage so that we can have more people in the audience. The survey kind of indicated, and Dave, you can jump in here, but students want to graduate with a friend, right? They would like their family to be there, but there's also this social component with trying to have a friend or a few friends with you. So if that's possible, we would like to do that. Whatever we want to do, it's really important to the students that they have caps, gowns, stage, and photo opportunities. So they want it to feel as close to normal as it can. And so part of that is taking care of those things. We actually were handing out, I say we, but Nordhoff was handing out caps and gowns today. And I saw pictures all over the place of students picking up their caps. And despite kind of the situation with their graduation ceremony, they're still excited to be doing that. So at this point, kind of our two big knowns are, it seems like the car parade is not a popular option. The virtual parade is not an option. And so we would do some version of small group. And so our two unknowns are the date and then the method for determining the groups. The date is important because if we have it sooner, if we have it in June, kind of towards our normal graduation time, the chances are it's a smaller group. If we have it later in July, potentially early August, we could have larger groups. And so our work is to decide how many students we would lose by pushing it. And if that is balanced by having it done sooner and kind of knowing it's going to be on June 11th and we're going to have, you know, groups of 10 and this is how people are going to sign up. So those are our two decisions is, do we wait, maybe have more people in the audience, or do we do it sooner with smaller groups?
That's good, Tiffany. That pretty much sums it up.
And it sounds like that July piece is a big maybe, having more people able to gather.
Yeah, in talking to James, you know, we all have this thing, like no one has a crystal ball, no one can predict when things are going to happen. We have some ideas and then mostly nothing has happened as anyone has thought it was going to happen. So the County of Ventura has, as I understand it, stopped making its own recommendations and is now following whatever the state recommendations are. So instead of having state and county and city regulations, it's going to just be state. And then we say, the county says whatever the state is doing is what we're doing. So, and in watching kind of some of the press releases from the state, they're opening up, but I think opening up things that are impacted economically, but not opening up group activities. Right, so the openings are driven by, I think, goods and services and money, and not so much by people's desire to gather and have weddings, funerals, and graduations.
Can you remind us, Dave, when the survey kind of started? Because I know for me, if you had asked me in the end of March, early April, I would say absolutely wait, because I know we can do it this summer, no car parade. But they asked me today, I kind of go, wow, I just heard yesterday that this might go another 3 months. Maybe that car parade isn't such a bad idea.
Well, I think that the survey results you're seeing right now are only a couple weeks old. So those aren't that far off from where we're currently at. The one on the virtual ceremony versus the in-person, that was done probably more around late March, early April. And so, yeah, the second one is still fairly new. You know, I want to make sure that students and families know that, you know, if we had the opportunity to do the traditional one, we absolutely want to. And, you know, that's why we looked at, you know, possibly around Thanksgiving, you know, that Friday or Saturday afterwards. You know, we've even talked about maybe having a traditional ceremony 2 or 3 days before the class of 2021 would have one. You know, again, trying to pick times when we knew that most of our graduates would be in town and have an opportunity to attend. But of course, you know, on the flip side, the big worry is the longer you wait on having some kind of ceremony for the students, you know, the less likely you're going to have as many, or the interest is going to wane. So, I think that last bullet point that Tiffany's showing under the knowns, having caps, gowns, stage, and photo opportunities, I think that's kind of really driving us. And the examples I'm seeing from around the county and state, looking at what other high schools are doing, you'll see a lot where they do these kind of drive up ceremonies where kids get out of the car, they come across the stage, their parents stay in the car. And then another one I saw out of Reedley High School was just single graduates with their families having several photo ops and the stage opportunities, but they're really just going one graduate at a time and then spreading those out, 10 or 15-minute increments. So
Like a photo booth at a party.
yeah.
Sometimes. Share that our opportunity for virtual graduation is probably no longer, not that that was highly popular, but there are a few companies that do virtual graduations and they are now booked out. I think we would have an August date potentially. So I don't know that we could revisit that one. So I think through the just narrowing of opportunities, we're now kind of in, this is what it will look like. Some variation of this is what we can realistically do at this time.
We do have a senior video tribute currently in progress, and that's something that we just traditionally do for our senior class, where some members of our video productions class put together a tribute to our seniors. So we're working on that, and I think you may know some of the other neat things that we're doing for our graduates. Great. I don't know if I'm jumping ahead in the presentation here.
No problem. So I'll actually just back up and say, we have a lot of people working on this. Dave and I are here presenting, but there's a whole team of people that's been doing this for a really long time, put a lot of time and effort into it. So the Senior Recognition Committee, I mentioned earlier, Bronwyn, Joyce, and Denise. And then we've just had other assistants, people jumping in, Linda Jordan, who's doing all the Facebook tributes, Kim Hoy. We're going to talk in a minute about the banners on Ojai Avenue, which are coming from Nigel, and then support from the mayor, the city, Public Works, and the NPA. So we are, there's everyone wants to make this special for our seniors and to kind of do what we can to compensate for the fact that it's not how any of us would want this year to end for them. So some of those senior recognitions that we're working on are the Senior Spotlight. You may have seen those on our Facebook page. Last week we had, I think, almost 13,000 views of our Facebook page at Nordhoff because people are looking at those, watching those. We have a Banners on Ojai Avenue project that's happening where we're, Jake Hansen and the design class are helping to put the senior pictures for students onto banners, and then those will be hung from June 1st through June 14th all along Ojai Avenue. We're working on a backyard prom project where we have pictures of seniors in their prom attire and a little video that we put together. There's also a super secret project that I can't tell you about, but that's coming in the future. I've sworn to not tell you, but we're excited about it. Another thing that I heard last night from Ventura Unified that I'm just stealing and putting on this slide because I thought it was interesting was a one-year reunion for our seniors next year. So they could come back in the summer, we could have a barbecue, they could bring their yearbooks, and they could have a social activity if, of course, that's permitted a year from now, but a time to reconnect all together in a space, and we could probably facilitate that in the future.
I just want to say I appreciate how much time and energy and thought and seeking opinions has gone into this. It's not an easy choice, and there's no easy, obvious solution here. So I appreciate that.
I was going to say the same thing.
Well, I think people in the community really want to do stuff. If you saw how quickly the community rallied behind the banner project and raising the funds, the people involved in, making it happen into getting these hung in downtown Ojai, really speaks to a lot how much this community really, is grieving with these students, so to speak, with the loss of these rites of passage. So we really are working hard to try and figure out as many ways to honor these graduates because we know that this was their moment, and it's lost, but hopefully it's just lost temporarily to be made up in other ways.
Well, thank you guys. And I wish I had some brilliant idea off the top of my head as you're saying all this, but alas, there's no brilliant solution here.
Yeah, there is no, you're right. There's no good solution. Again, we can look for options, but everything that we've seen, and Dave and I have probably spent, both of us, countless hours watching what other people are doing. And they're all some variation of those three ideas. There's no real other way to do it. So we're hoping that we can at least announce to families soon that, we will have some kind of small group graduation with the stage and a ceremony, probably groups of 10, and how they can sign up and how they can bring their graduates and still have the photos and have some family interaction and have some friend action potentially.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Dave, for all that work and sharing with us tonight.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
We are moving to 7.1, which is the adoption of the consent calendar. And I just wanted to say a thank you to the Rotary for their donation to the Family Fund this month.
Ironically, that grant is for putting together everything we need to do a clothing closet. And then we needed that sooner, so we've put it in the Chaparral Auditorium, but with the grant that the Rotary provided us, we'll be able to put it into a more permanent space where families can visit year round. So,
great. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll move to approve.
Thane motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jane. Roll call vote. Jane?
Aye.
Thane?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
And Shelley? Aye, so that passes unanimously. 7.2.1 is resolution 192030. Directing service of final notice to reduction of particular kinds of certificated services. Are there any questions on this item? If not, if there's a motion.
Yeah, reluctantly, I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor? Jane?
Aye.
Thane?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
And Shelley, aye. That passes unanimously also. And 7.3.1 is the Independent Study Pilot Program for the 2020-2021 school year.
and I will share my screen again with you if I can find that spot. Actually, let me stop share because I have to go to a different screen for just a moment.
And welcome back, Thane. I know you were having technical difficulties, but it's good to see you back.
Thanks. Yeah, totally lost the internet, but I captured it back somehow.
Awesome.
So a little bit of context for this item. Last year, we really started our thinking about how we can serve students differently. So not all students are successful or want to be in a comprehensive school setting, especially in middle school and high school. And so last year, or I guess it's this year currently, but in the 1920 school year, we started Ojai Independent, which was designed to serve grades 6 through 12. And we had kind of two places for that. We had students who met at Summit and participated in the Rock Tree Sky program. And then we had students who met at Chaparral. And so these are the numbers that we have as of today. Those numbers have kind of fluctuated. So part of our goals as a district are to always be innovative and to always be looking to see if we can do things better. And so in evaluating this program for the 1920 year, we think that we can make some modifications and do it better in the 2021 school year. So what we're proposing are two separate things. So one is Summit School, which you approved, I believe, in February. And Summit School would essentially be a homeschool and an independent study program for grades K through 12. And Summit is what is known in kind of the charter school world, although they're not all charter schools, but is a personalized learning model. So essentially, if you enroll in Summit, you meet with the instructor, you meet with the principal, and you determine what is going to be the best program for you. Parts of it might be online, parts of it might be project-based learning, parts of it might be an actual math book that you're working through. It really depends on what you need as a student. Our students at Summit also have access to an enrichment program through Rock Tree Sky. So Summit School we can think about as our homeschool and our personalized learning option. What we're proposing to add next year or to modify next year are online programs. So we have Ojai Independent. There are a few things about being a separate school that make it a little bit tricky. We were hoping this year that our students in Ojai Independent would be able to participate in CIF sports, but due to a vote in the league, that's not possible. Also, it's a little bit difficult to have it at Chaparral. That may not be the best model. And so what we're looking at based on a number of things, based on families telling us that they like distance learning and they don't want to come back to a traditional model, based on families telling us that they may be afraid to go to school next year. They don't want to come on campus. We think that we need to have some alternatives for those students, given just the wide range of issues and areas that our families are coming from next year. And so we're proposing a Nordhoff and a Matilaha online program. So it's not a school. It would be integrated into the comprehensive campus. And our primary objective is to provide students with flexible schedule options, right? If you're in Matilaha or in Nordhoff, you don't really have a flexible schedule option. You're there 6 periods a day. And Cheryl, you can jump in at any point. Our curriculum at this point would be Edgenuity at Nordhoff High School, and we're evaluating with the team to see if Edgenuity would work at Matilaha or not. We're not convinced that it's not the best program or that it is the best program. We just have to do a little bit more work around that. The students would come essentially 1 to 2 periods a day, and next fall, it might be even just they check in with their teacher for a period by Zoom. We would prefer if we have campus that they're on campus, but we're not quite sure what that would look like. So instead of Ojai Independent, where we have students meeting less frequently, these students would be having regular daily contact with their teacher because we think that that helps them to be more academically successful. Students could also take 1 to 2 courses on campus. So if they wanted to take an elective class, they could do that. If they wanted to take math in person because they feel like they're better at learning math in person than on the computer, they could do that. They could attend school events if we ever have school events again, and they could play sports if we have sports. So the idea is that they can really be integrated into the culture of the regular campus, but have this flexible schedule. In terms of teachers, it wouldn't be any additional teachers for us. We would just have some of our current teachers would be assigned to oversee students who are in this online program during those periods.
Question, Tiffany, on
Yeah.
the attending classes at the campuses.
Mm-hmm.
Is it limited to a maximum of 2, or could they choose to make it even a different balance?
I think what we would do is if you are 50% of the school day in person, then you would be in just regular Matilaha. If you are taking, and I was trying to figure out how many classes that would be. So essentially 3 classes. If you're in 3 classes on campus, then we would probably put you in Matilaha, the entire program. But part of our goal is to be flexible with students, right? And so I think we could still be flexible. Cheryl?
Yeah, I have nothing to add there. I think that, if the majority is at Matilah, then they would be, enrolled in Matilah. But I think that there's still some possibility that they could take one course through Edgenuity or something like that. So it just depends on where we call their attendance, right? Matilah online or Matilah, the traditional school.
Do you, I know Thane has been looking for something like this for years, right, Thane? But my only concern, I love the idea of being flexible and helping families find what works for them. I think the reason we steered clear of this in the past was concern that students would suddenly say, well, I'm going to just take calculus online, and then we don't have enough students enrolled in to actually have a teacher. So then suddenly you have only 20 kids enrolled in the teachers sit in the classroom calculus class.
Yeah, so we're being really cognizant of that because we have Edgenuity as an option right now. So if there is a class option for students, so if a student is just trying to take one class online, and we kind of go through a process with them, does it fit in your schedule? Are you trying to take a different class instead, right? It's not just that I'm trying to take a class online because I don't want to be with that teacher or I don't want to be in a class, right? So we are already working individually with students who want to enroll in online classes to make sure that the preferred option is that they're with a teacher, but that there's essentially kind of that appeals process, right? If you're trying to do something else with your schedule, then there may be a reason that you would take a class in an alternative setting. So that's kind of a class by class basis, but those students are enrolled in regular Nordhoff program. And next year we have some students who are taking online classes in order to free up their schedule to take other things that they want to take.
Okay, so it's not quite kind of a pick and choose. It's sort of like if you go the online program, you go the online program and we can allow you one or two, but if you can't just kind of willy-nilly pick and choose your favorite way for each class.
Yeah, that's not the goal. The goal would be that students are the majority of the day in the comprehensive program, or that they're not in the comprehensive program and they're really online, they're just coming to take one or two classes. So we really want you to be kind of either or. There may be some instances where it's a little more flexibility, but that would certainly be on a case-by-case, very rare basis. This option is for families and students who want flexibility. The other thing to note about this is that in order to be in this program, it would have, if you have an IEP and receive special education services, this would be a determination made by the IEP team.
And I love the concept, and just kind of the other side to the argument, Jane, is we've had some students who weren't able to get into a class because there were too many for the class, but not enough for two classes. If there were some students doing this program, then possibly all the students who wanted to take the class could take the class. It cuts both ways. I mean, there's no perfect solution to anything. And I imagine over time, this would have to be tweaked a lot based on our experience.
Yeah, part of the reason this is here right now is because we know that specifically related to COVID, school will look different next year, and some families want something different next year. And so in order to be responsive to that, we would pilot this, and it might look different the following year when COVID isn't a determining factor. But for right now, we know that there are some families that are just concerned about their health, and they will not come back unless we have an option for them.
The other question, will we have this option for board meetings going forward as well?
I think it's
I don't need an answer right now. Let's think about it.
I think it's very important for next year, and I'm glad to see this being discussed now, getting ready for next year, because I think you're absolutely right. There's a lot of families who are going to be wanting as much flexibility as possible. And it gives us the chance to pilot it and see what works and what doesn't, and how we want to permanently incorporate this. But I think for next year, we definitely need something more flexible.
So if you approve this pilot tonight, then we will go back tomorrow and modify our registration forms. So we have online registration forms right now, which is a shift, but we did not put these programs on the registration form. So we'll go back and modify our registration form so that families can select this option when they're registering. But we didn't want to do it until you had a chance to approve it.
And do you
I would
think,
like to move to approve. Sorry, go ahead, Jane.
that's
I
all
didn't-
right, I'll second it, but I wanted to just ask, can a family change their mind? Like maybe in August, they thought, gee, I thought I'd be comfortable going back to school, but I'm not, so I'd like to change my registration.
Yes. We understand that next year we will have to be very flexible and very fluid, and that, you know, what seems to be real today may not be real tomorrow for us and for students. And so our job is to meet students and families where they are and to serve them in the best way that we can. So of course, if a family says, I want to do this, or I don't want to do this, and they change their mind, our job is to serve them.
Can you clarify for me a bit the how teacher ratios would work? How many, if somebody is homeschooling most of it, how many students one teacher would be responsible for, kind of equivalent to in class?
So we've been piloting that this year, but that's some work that we would probably want to do some consultation with our OFT on. And now that we would have more, potentially more teachers doing this, we would really want to work together. So I'm hoping that will come out a part of our reopening committee, and we can look at that as a question.
Okay, thank you. So it sounds like we have a first and a second. Are there any other discussion or questions before we vote? If not, I will take a roll call vote. All in favor? Michael?
Aye.
Thane?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Kevin?
Yes.
And Shelley? Aye. That passes unanimously. Thank you all. 7.3.2 is an update on Matilaha Middle School course selections. And I believe Ella wanted to speak on this. Is she still around? There she is. Hi, Ella. We'd love to hear what you have to say before we tackle this discussion item.
Thank
But
you.
you're muted. There you go.
Okay. I just had a few questions about it. Well, first of all, I'm really glad that Spanish is going to be open to a lot more students, because I personally took Spanish in 8th grade and I really enjoyed being able to take Spanish 2 as a freshman. But will another teacher have to be added to the Spanish class at Matilaha or rearranged? Because how would that work? In terms of like, so you have Spanish 2 at Nordhoff. If you're an 8th grader, you can go to Spanish 2.
Correct. So just like we have students who accelerate a whole year in math, and so when they're 8th graders, they start first period at Nordhoff, they would get bused back. So the same thing would be true of Spanish 2. If an 8th grader, if a student was so committed to Spanish that they took it in 6th grade, 7th, and 7th grade, then as an 8th grader, they could start first period Spanish 2 at Nordhoff and then be bused back. Now, if the math kids and the Spanish kids happen to have a little overlap, then we're going to have to be creative in what we can offer, and potentially Edgenuity is one of those creative ways, right? So maybe they choose to do Spanish 2 through Edgenuity for that year, because essentially what you're having there is a scheduling conflict because you can't take both during first period at Nordhoff. So, but we'll just address those as they come through and see what we can do to honor, you know, allowing an 8th grader to take both Spanish 2 if they're ready to, as well as the math 2.
Okay. And then also, what if like a Spanish 2 class is too full at Nordhoff, because would upperclassmen get priority?
I think we offer enough Spanish 2 sections at Nordhoff currently that we can make it work. But again, that would then come back to you know, possibly using Edgenuity as a solution. And then also, I'm not sure we would just give the upperclassmen priority, but I would say that we'd probably take into consideration the actual goals of the students at Nordhoff. I mean, students who want to make it through A to G, and that's part of their goals. We'd want to honor them being in Spanish too, as that is part of that pathway completion. So we'd have to take all those into consideration. But I think that Edgenuity offers us an interesting solution. And, you know, we've never addressed trying to let a kid go to Nordhoff during 6th period, but that might also work. So
I've done it, actually. It has been addressed. My son went 6th period because of a conflict with English and math. And
so I
so
think
it has been done.
Great, good to know.
There was no bus, but it has been done.
Yeah, we'd be open to those kind of flexible solutions.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Ella, just you did have that one other question, or I don't know, about she and I didn't know when we had this conversation, and I don't know if you know the answer right off the top of your head, but if you take Spanish 1 or Spanish 2 in middle school, does it show up on your transcript for college where are they just looking for, are colleges looking for a certain level or a certain number of years?
Well, A to G is looking for a certain number of years, right? So 2 years. And my understanding is that you can count it even if they took it at the middle school. We just have to transfer it to the Nordhoff transcript. But to be competitive at colleges, they're looking to see how high you can go in the level for sure, to some degree, or at least what you've committed yourself to as a student, right? They want to see some level of commitment, whether that's like you did 4 years of music, or you did 4 years of sports, or a variety of things, and really taking advantage of the offerings at your school site. But if you were sort of a dedicated world language person, this really allows you the opportunity to get higher and even make it into Spanish 5 AP, which I don't think we've had students doing at Nordhoff, at least not since I've been there. We used to do it when I was there, but they're not making it that far. So this would give an opportunity for more kids to get higher into those even Spanish 5 AP levels.
Perfect. Thanks, Ella. Those were great questions. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for answering them.
My pleasure.
Okay. Good.
She's gonna get elected instead of me soon.
You have to be 18. We're
Okay.
waiting, Ella.
God.
Are there other questions, or did you want to, Tiffany, talk about the update at all?
I was just, Cheryl, if you want to do an introduction, but I was gonna, if you had questions, we would just start there. Which would,
I'm happy to do either. I can explain everything, or if you kind of understand it and just want to ask questions, that's fine too.
Are there questions from the board? I kind of expressed some of my concerns before the meeting, because along with Ella, I had a lot of questions about Spanish and wanted to make sure that we weren't setting kids up for potential gap if they took a 6th grade, 7th grade, and then there's nothing in 8th grade. And my other concern is still a concern, but I would really like to see a differentiation between 7th grade and 8th grade Spanish for those kids who are doing both years. Because I had a kid who did 7th and 8th grade Spanish, and the 8th grade was so repetitive as to make him check out, and you know, just.
And we actually do have that built in. I mean, I'll speak to it. This is my area of expertise.
Yes.
I did teach Spanish. And I can tell you, after teaching for 5 years, Spanish 1 at Nordhoff, you know, in a year where I might have, you know, up to 180 kids in Spanish 1, you know, there are definitely your flyers, those kids who maybe 50 out of 180 who just ace it and get it right away, and they're fluent in it, and they're really picking up the pronunciation, and they're really, really ready for Spanish 2. And then we see a good portion who they're getting it, but it just takes more time for it to click for them. And especially in the speaking and the listening, really retraining your tongue to make different sounds and understanding accent, and you know, just being in the language, right? Just being in the language and just practicing in the language. And so we see a lot of students do okay in Spanish 1 and they make it to Spanish 2, but then that's where they really struggle, because Spanish 2, in my experience, is the most difficult year. You're really looking at a lot of verb conjugations that are very difficult and very different. That's the biggest difference from English to Spanish, is just the verb conjugations and the way the verb structures are. And so in Spanish 2, it's very heavy. And so if you haven't really truly mastered Spanish 1, you're going into Spanish 2 with a big setback. And so I see this being a really big advantage for kids to really spread out Spanish 1, especially when they're younger, especially, you know, when their development is still not the level of a high schooler, and really spreading out that Spanish 1. But even in this model, if you had a kid who flew through Spanish 1A and they could pass that entrance exam, we still could let them go to Spanish 2. Now that would mean in some cases a 7th grader, but it can be done. So that's an option that we can look at. So if there's 6th graders who take Spanish 1A and they really do make it to that really you know, high level of understanding all the concepts, and really their fluency is really good with the language, listening and speaking, I think that there is a way that we could get them into Spanish 2 sooner. But I don't think that's going to be the norm, especially even with what I was saying before about what I would experience in 9th grade, watching 9th graders. You know, a good portion struggle, and it's a process. And just like I said, the being around the language is so important to really to get it right, and to be able to do those sounds and those pronunciations. So
thank you.
Yeah.
My other question is, so there was the changes, basically there's changes to the wheel. Now there's two different wheels offered, which is wonderful, because when my kids went, there was just one wheel, so that you can have 2 different wheels. But then there's still the option of Spanish, and there's the option of music. Is that
correct? There's still music, there's Spanish. Makerspace is essentially just part of the 6th grade wheel. What we learned this year from coding and aerospace, which were year-long classes, is that it was just a little too long. And especially for students in middle school, what we know about the research is this is the time to explore new things. So sitting in a whole year of coding, some kids did get bored by it. Some loved it and would be happy to stay the whole year and probably commit the next 3 years to it. But the majority, you know, after a trimester realized like, oh, this isn't for me. And that's what we expect to happen in middle school. And the same was true of aerospace. So Makerspace was actually something we wanted to offer last year or this school year, as we were planning, and we had done a survey with students and they were excited about Makerspace, but it just didn't fit in the schedule. And so the 6th grade teachers have decided that a wheel would be better with Makerspace, coding, and aerospace. That way they're just getting a trimester of each, kind of getting a sense of what this is all about, and it just gives more options. So Academic Support 6 is coming out of the elective offerings, and that is going to be something that the 6th grade teachers actually do. So intervention or support, academic support, is going to be something that the 6th grade teachers weave into the advisory period, which they're going to be able to do easily because they are all in the same block and they share the same group of kids. And so they're planning on doing a little bit on Thursday and Friday of redistributing kids and, you know, giving them a little extra of what they need as far as intervention and support for maybe a math concept they didn't understand or an English concept they didn't understand. So this came directly from the input from the 6th grade teachers as far as what they observed this year and what they thought they should do. And then film came because Amber Menares did film and patient care as a whole year class, as a CTE class. And she is actually going to need to go into the wheel now as one trimester, and she just couldn't possibly do film and patient care in one trimester. She still has some plans to weave in a little bit of patient care stuff because she's so passionate about it, but film will be the core of what they do for the trimester in the wheel with her.
And how does that work in terms of, so I had a sense when my kids were there, they did music, so they didn't participate in it, but the 7th grade wheel and the 8th grade wheel was the same. And you were kind of, so as an 8th grader, you kind of were like, I've already taken this class.
Yeah, I mean, so if there's the 7th and the 8th graders primarily do use this wheel. So the other options are music. We do have, even though art is going to be part of the 6th grade 6-period class that backs up to PE, we are considering an option where maybe a handful of 7th and 8th graders could be in that class. We saw Thomas do that with music this year. So even though there were 6th graders in the music 6-period section, and again, it was, you know, half the kids one week, half the kids the next week because they backed up with PE, Thomas was able to have a handful of 7th and 8th graders in there that he did some work with. So, you know, we would love more options for 7th and 8th graders, but it is difficult to add more electives, especially given cuts and, you know, the budget.
Well, and now we would have Spanish as another possibility.
Spanish, absolutely. That's true.
And then I'm just not aware of this. When they actually divide up for the wheel, is it 7th and 8th graders are mixed?
Yes, correct. Oh, actually, there's one other addition. There's 2 year-long classes in the 6th grade with the 6th grade teachers, and that's drama and leadership. So there's 5 6th grade teachers. So this wheel was for 3 of them, and that is just for 6th grade. But I forgot, drama and leadership actually is an option for 7th and 8th graders as well. So that's also there, which I forgot to mention, which is a nice option for them. So they're not totally stuck in taking the wheel twice.
Great. Thank you. I don't have any questions. I'll move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Are there any other questions or discussion? Great. All in favor? Thane?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
And Shelley? Aye. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Where are we? 7.3.3 is the levered curriculum, a possible pilot in grades 3 through 5. We had it in 4th grade this year.
Share my screen again, and Cheryl is going to give this presentation, but Cheryl, I will be the clicker for you.
Perfect. Okay, so you guys will remember that we brought this to you last year. We wanted to pilot this year with 4th grade students. Tiffany had met Mitch somewhere at some conference, and he had these amazing results with what he was doing as far as pilots in some Southern California schools. And I actually have that as part of the slides in here so we can be reminded of those amazing results. And so we brought him to do a presentation with our 4th grade teachers, and it was optional for them, and every single one of them jumped on board to pilot levered, and it has been a phenomenal year. The kids have done amazing, and what was nice is they were in the process of building 3rd and 5th grade this year, and so they did have fractions and decimal units available. So our 3rd and 5th grade teachers across the district were able to pilot those 2 units with their students as well. And everybody is very sold on the fact that levered is a progressive, amazing way to deliver instruction to students. It just gives you real-time information to intervene in the moment and work with students, both whole group and small group, to help them when they get stuck in concepts. So I don't need to read all these, but you can see here some of the comments from the teachers. I did.
Carol, can I just pause and say, so just to remind the board, the concept of levered, it's not just an online program. So it's not like Zern where kids are just clicking and you know, doing things online. That's part of it, but essentially the online portion is so that the program can collect and analyze students' conceptual errors in mathematics and then provide data back to the teacher about how they could be reteaching. And so you couldn't do that without the online component, but basically students are online, they're clicking through, and then the teacher gets like, pull these 5 kids out and teach them this thing with this lesson, because this is the conceptual error that they're making in their work. And then the next day, based on how the whole class did, this is your group opening exercise that you should do with the group based on where they are. And so it really is, the concept is to allow teachers, is to give teachers the data they need to do real-time intervention and to create flexible learning environments for students based on how they're doing and what they're what's happening with their thinking around that particular mathematics problem. So it's not just online, it's really an online program to give teacher data to drive teacher instruction.
Right. There is no teacher sitting behind a desk while kids are on a screen. The teacher is very active and moving around the room and pulling groups and sometimes doing whole group work. The principals and you might want to go to the next slide because I think there's more quotes from teachers that they could look at. But the principals and I have talked a little bit about how we might want to do intervention next year for math. And we were talking about, in addition to the classroom teacher, maybe trying to have sort of an intervention aide also be there during specifically the math lesson with Levered, because that's just really the key to the program, is pulling kids in real time, whether that's one kid, whether that's 3 kids. The program tells you who's getting stuck and where they're getting stuck. And so the more that you can intervene and pull those small groups and reteach and show them conceptually where they're going wrong, which the computer tells you, the data tells you, that's where the fast and efficient learning is really happening. And the nice thing as well is that there's so much acceleration built in as well. So the students who can really fly with math are really challenged. The enrichment that was created in Levered is challenging, but it's exciting for kids. The kids have really enjoyed it. And the teachers are noticing that, and it's certainly being reported back to us, both from students, parents, and the teachers. So, and here's of course a parent comment there as well for you.
I love that, playing math.
Yeah. The last slide is the slide that was really sold us when we heard from Mitch. In addition to seeing the Levered in action, but what this slide is telling you is, if you see the top bars, that's a school that one of the schools in Chula Vista that was using Levered as a pilot. And keep in mind, they didn't even have the whole year built with this data. I think I'm correct on that, right, Tiffany? They only had the units, the fractions and the decimals units. And this is how well that school did. And what you see is the orange were the students who were below standard. And so you see that improved in the next year in 4th grade. Fewer were below standard and made it into the nearly met category. And then from 3rd grade, more kids came out of nearly met and made it into the met standard. But what happened, which was also really amazing, is you didn't lose kids from the exceeded standard, you grew. And that's where sometimes in schools, and you can see the very next set of graphs from Chula Vista, the rest of the schools that were not piloting Levered, yeah, they got some of those kids out of the did not meet orange level, but there was backsliding from the kids who exceeded or met. And that can happen when we're primarily focused on providing intervention, right? We're trying to really get those low kids up. But if we don't have a way to keep the kids who are meeting the standard or exceeding the standard engaged and moving forward and moving into those enrichment opportunities and deeper levels of understanding the math concepts, that's where you get the backslide. And so Mitch had told us, we are really truly bummed that we did not have the SBAC test this year. Mitch was telling us that he had been tracking how many units our kids were passing and how far they were going in the program. And he was saying that it was exceeding some of these schools that he had piloted with in the past. And so he was really looking forward to our data as well as a district. And so, we will be looking, of course, excitedly to see how they do in the next spring, 2021 data. But we were definitely on track to do what some of these other schools did, if not better, based on what Mitch was seeing. And Mitch, you saw on some of the teachers' comments, Mitch is the most responsive curriculum rep, and it's because he's really not a curriculum rep at heart. He's a teacher. That he created this because he was not satisfied with what he had as tools as a teacher, and it comes across in everything he does. He's reaching out to teachers when he sees kids falling behind, or he sees kids, it gets to a point where you just move kids to the next unit because enough of your class has gotten there, and he's personally emailing our teachers saying, hey, you've got enough kids, you really should move them to the next unit so that you can move forward. So he is very responsive. The professional development has been like no other I've ever seen with a curriculum. So it's been great for our teachers.
I have a couple of questions for you. If my memory says that that only fourth grade was available when we first piloted
The
this,
whole year of fourth grade was the only thing he had available this year.
and now he has only third through fifth,
Correct.
and eventually the plan for him is full elementary, I'm assuming.
Tiffany, do you know? I think last I heard him say he was saying third through sixth, possibly.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where his future
Yeah.
goals are.
He has some of the screen time issues. So second grade, just due to screen time, would have to look different. And so it doesn't necessarily make sense to move down into second grade with a program that has some screen time in it and without totally revamping that. So it makes more sense to move up into sixth grade. So I will say we are the first district in Ventura County. We are actually Mitch's first client to work with the entire district. So Chula Vista, some of the other places he's been have only been in one school. Rio School District down in Oxnard currently has one school piloting. We are a really good test case because we are district wide. And so we're excited that we're the first district wide implementation of Levered.
My other question, so thank you, that answered my question. I was wondering why 3 to 5, that we're looking to pilot. And my other question is about costs, and Chromebook access and what all of this means.
So we have, we adopted Bridges, and in Bridges, we had money set aside for consumables. And so, which we haven't been buying because we've been using this. So about half of the cost of Levered is about $20,000 for 3, 4, 5 next year for all students in those grades. Half of that would be offset by funds that we're not spending on consumables. The other thing that is coming out of this is some of it is professional development for our teachers. And then next year, actually, we anticipate that this will be a foundation of our distance learning curriculum for students, because we are planning on having the ability to have distance learning. And so some of this may actually be able to be funded out of our COVID-19 related distance learning expenses, because this will be the primary online distance learning math program. In terms of Chromebook access, we already are moving towards a plan of having fourth graders get Chromebooks and they roll up with them until 8th grade. And then our 8th graders, so essentially we have a 4-year Chromebook plan. So built into the budget next year, we have Chromebooks for 4th grade. 3rd grade has Chromebook carts available, so they don't take them home, but they have carts on campus. So the technology piece has already been part of our whole plan. Of course, in preparing for distance learning next year, everybody's got to have a Chromebook basically, or we can't distance learn. So that's again, kind of a cost we actually might be able to offset next year, depending on what our full distance learning plan looks like.
Didn't we already send kids home in 4th grade with Chromebooks this year because of Levered?
Yeah.
So those will go to they'll keep them for 5th
Yeah,
grade.
so they keep those through 8th grade, and then in 8th grade, they get a new one.
So it sounds like what I'm hearing is essentially it's $10,000 to do these 3 grade levels across the district.
Mm-hmm. The other thing is that, yes, the cost, that includes all of the professional development the first year, and then eventually the costs per student go down because the teachers have been trained. So this first year, as Cheryl was saying, is a really intense training with our teachers, which really, we don't have any other mathematics professional development for teachers that they go to. And you can see our scores here. That's an area of concern for us, is that our teachers potentially may need more training to help our students increase their achievement. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 model where the teachers get the PD and we get the curriculum.
Are there other board questions?
I just noticed when we were looking at the slides, there was Carolyn Burke had talked about option 2.
Yeah.
What was she talking about?
So
When I had emailed the teachers to get feedback, the 3rd through 5th grade teachers, I had laid out some options. Option 1 was just bring to you actually a request to actually adopt levered right now for the future in 3rd through 5th. Option 2 was do a pilot for 1 more year, since the 3rd and 5th grade teachers did not get to see the full year. There was only the 2 units available. And then the 3rd option was stick with bridges. The 4th option was try to pilot some more math in the future. So overwhelmingly, every single person responded either 1 or 2, or I'll take either 1 or 2. So they all want it. It was just a variety of, should we just pilot 1 more year so that we can see the whole year in 3rd and 5th grade? And there's no difference in the cost if you pilot or purchase. So there's no difference there.
So I guess actually that brings up, it's actually $20,000 every year.
Yes, but so is the cost of the consumables for our, not 20,000, but there is a cost to our current math curriculum every year in consumables.
And it's not actually 20. So it works out to be about $55 a student the first year. And then it goes down by $5 or $10 every year after that, because of that PD issue. So the cost does go down, and it depends on the number of students and teachers and all those kinds of things. But
Obviously, if this is a successful program, then also 5 years from now, we're not adopting a new curriculum book and paying for that.
Right.
Correct, because that's expensive. Mm-hmm.
Are there other questions?
I'll move to approve the pilot for 3rd and 5th grade for next year.
I'll second that.
Great, we have a motion and a second. Are there any other questions or discussions? If not, all in favor? Michael? Oh, try again, Michael, you were muted.
Aye.
Thank you. Jane?
Aye.
Kevin?
Yes.
Thane?
Aye.
And Shelley, aye. That passes unanimously. Thank you all. And thank you for surveying the teachers and getting us that information. That helps. 7.4.1 is our Measure J update.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Now we don't have a whole lot to talk about this month, and I have my full voice back. So, of course, that's how it goes. I'll just highlight a couple things, and then Alan's actually going to give an update on the library and the kitchen at Matilaha. On the update, it does say that the Matilaha sewer repairs would be on the agenda tonight. We did not put those on. Those will be on the June agenda. We decided to pull it to kind of fine tune our scope of work actually, and hopefully drive the price down actually a little bit. The other biggies are obviously the pool. We received the first design. We're trying to tweak it a little bit just to, again, for a cost savings measure. But that should hopefully, the first portion of those repairs will be on the June agenda for approval as well. The Nordoff basketball court and paving, we're talking to Dave Munson as well as Jim Hall and Renee Nakow regarding kind of the usage of the outdoor courts versus the tennis courts over there at Nordoff, and trying to prioritize some of that, as well as looking into possibly lighting all of those right now. So
I'll just pause and say our thoughts around lighting, and this actually came from David Rogers, is that the community uses the tennis courts and the pool a lot, but would use them more if there were lights. There's an option of potentially even having pay lights like you have at the skate park, right? So solar pay lights.
Right.
We could do that. We could not do that, but it could help to,
Tennis courts and basketball courts, is that what you mean? You said tennis courts and pool. Does the community
actually the pool also needs better lights and could be used longer in the summer if the pool lights. So one thing we may want to think about is if we're doing a lighting project there, tennis courts, basketball, pool, because they're all kind of in that same area, that we could do lights for all of them. It's part of the decoration.
and Musco Lighting that does, 7 out of 10 across the country kind of thing. They actually did a study on this, I think, during the Ron Tyndall era. And so they're just kind of revising it, and actually the costs have gone down since then. So they're revising some of the costs, and we should have that later this week or early next week as well. So it's encouraging. And then lastly, I know HVAC rooftop, or all HVAC is always on here. We are working towards a solution there. The reason it is such a long issue and a predominant issue is that, frankly, everything aside from what Alan and I have been able to replace as the ground units and the previous rooftops through the Climate Tech stuff, most of the other stuff is 2003 and older. So we are really going through and trying to triage what is the best approach by campus and by unit for not only a cost, but also to make our money, go as far as possible. So, and that's it for me. Alan, you can jump in on the library and the kitchen.
Hello, everyone.
Hi,
Been
Alan.
watching for a while, and so thanks for that update, Adam. Talking about Nordhoff Library, a couple of things are happening there. One is a footing that had to be removed and replaced as a part of getting the sewer line fall to work. And so that change order that was going to occur came in at a number that was way higher than I was willing to consider. And so Adam and I talked about it, and we decided that part of that, the main reason it seemed like the change order was proposed that was so costly was they had a lot of unknowns. And so we told them to go ahead and do the demolition on a TNM basis so that we could determine where we were at and eliminate some of the unknowns. And the bottom line of all that is that they did do the demo. It was cheaper to do the demo than they had originally quoted. And now that they're ready to put everything back, it looks like overall that change order that was 44,000 is now going to come in about 32,000. So that was a good call. We're also looking at the ceiling in Nordhoff because we want to do something intentional there, because it was kind of a bare bones the way it was originally proposed. And so one of the things that we found out in the design of that ceiling was that there wasn't a good way to attach the ceiling tiles, what's called tectum, and so that they needed to add some furring strips so they could attach those ceiling tiles, and without having the roof penetration screws sticking through the ceiling tiles. So that change order was proposed at $40,000 to put in all that furring, which was mostly labor because the material is not that expensive. And we said, man, if we're going to spend $40,000 on the ceiling, we really ought to look at some other options to improve the look of the ceiling, because we're not really getting any improvement aesthetically for that 40 grand. So we decided not to do that, and we looked at some other things. So by June, we'll have a proposal to you for to modify the look of that ceiling and solve a couple of different issues that we have there. Regarding that ceiling, the roof above it will be completed this week. Might be completed tomorrow. So that's Western States is doing that. And we also have 5 other buildings where the roofing is being redone by a Mid-State construction that you approved in December. So all of that roofing is going on. So lots of things happening there. We've also got bathroom remodelings that you approved, and F-Wing starts next week on their landscaping. So lots of things are happening at Nordhoff. At Matilaha, the roof beams are in.
Alan, before you go off, you had mentioned to me on Monday, Alan gave me a tour of Nordhoff and Matilaha, some issues with the landscape finishing that right outside the library. Any word on that?
Quad?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, the quad, I've been in contact with the contractor this week, and he had an accident and rolled down a hill and tore up his shoulder and had to have hip replacement surgery. He's kind of a one-man kingpin of his construction company. So it really slowed him down, but we're back in touch with it now. We're back working on the punch list, and hopefully get that wrapped up, because we're really, really close on wrapping up that quad.
Alan, so the grading is cement and, you know, water intrusion potential stuff is all that's dealt with, or is that still working on?
Correct. Yes, the drainage has been solved. What's left is the roof for the trellis, some handrails, and one little 12-inch by 6-foot wide piece of concrete to replace, and a couple of little small things like that. So the tree grates have to be put back, have to be installed. We're really down to the short strokes on that. Okay, so then moving on to Matilahaw. I said the roof beams are in. We're starting on the rough electrical and plumbing this week, and we're making really good progress there. So we're thinking we hope to get that done by the time school does start, because we have picked up some ground where we were behind that schedule. So we think we can make it.
I think that's the one silver lining in all of this, is that our teachers don't have to listen to the construction while they're teaching anymore. So I'm glad to hear it'll come to completion while the school is empty.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's been great for us to have the schools, without the students and teachers around, because we've stepped up all of our projects and we're getting a lot done.
Great.
Any other questions on the update from anybody?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
7.4.2 is the ratification of the change order on the Nordhoff Stadium restroom roofing project. As we know, this is just a ratification and it already took place. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Thane. And a second? I suppose I can second. I'll second.
Boy.
All in favor, Michael?
Aye.
Thane?
Aye.
Kevin? Kevin?
Sorry. Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
And Shelley, aye. So that passes unanimously.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And thank you all night for us.
No problem.
Yep. Thank you.
Good night. 7.5.2 is board goals, which we've been talking about for a while.
So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And in case you would like to edit the words of these goals, we can do so together. So just as a reminder for everyone, these goals, the colorful words were selected at a board retreat. You had some discussion at a kind of mid-year board retreat. We're now trying to get this next sentence that's got a little bit of definition, and then we'll come back to you and say, what are the 4 things that we're working on in student achievement next year? For example, maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th grade math. So there will be specific measurable initiatives tied to these in the future once we kind of get this particular piece set. The other thing is, these don't have to be your forever goals. These could be your goals this year. You may want to change them next year. You may want to change the words next year. It's just as a starting place for us.
So you're not looking to say student achievement, you're not looking for something that says we wish to improve the reading levels in our ELA. You're not looking for that.
No, so we'll be bringing that back to you specifically. This is a kind of general, as they might say, aspirational goal. And on this, specifically on the student achievement goal, this is the one. The rest of them, leadership team has had feedback on this. The student achievement goal is worded very specifically because it came from the PLC committee that's working on our PLC norms and practices. And Angie could speak to that, but this is the statement specifically around student achievement that came from that group. Everything else is not as specifically worded and tied to particular work that we're doing.
Is there, for student achievement, how does everyone feel about adding something that talks about, sorry, I was thinking of improvement. I mean, you know, that's important too, that they're not just all learning at high levels, but they're all improving. Even if you start out below grade level and you're finished the year, you're still below grade level, but you're better than you were. You know, you're not achieving at a high level, but you're improving your level.
And that's also true of those who are at high levels who, rather than staying status, they improve. And at both ends of the spectrum, I think that works for.
Cheryl and Angie, do you have thoughts about that?
I don't think it hurts to add something as far as the PLC work that we're doing and our commitment to all students achieving at high levels. I don't think it hurts to add something about each student will, you know, make progress. But I think that each student making progress is already built into what our expectations are as far as making sure that everyone learns at high levels. So
I'll support either language. I don't care, but my comment is that this was a lot like the state testing right before that, where with the No Child Left Behind, where you had to improve a certain percentage, and once you got to 100%, if you didn't continue your percentage improvement, you were dinged. Even if all the students were, you know, scoring 100% on the test, you lost. So
I think that was a good strategy, huh?
Anyway, I don't care. I mean, we can all improve. No one's perfect. So I don't care either way.
I think adding improvement or demonstrating improvement does give us a fallback, because I mean, realistically speaking, not every student is going to be at high levels. But if we can get them to at least show progress, I think that would be successful. Obviously, my preference would be everybody's at high levels. But I don't know. I think there might be room for progress as well. I'm not sure what the language would be.
I added some language. Does that suit everyone? We will provide an environment where students make academic progress and each and every student will learn at high levels.
I can support that.
I like that.
Me too.
So I had a couple of thoughts. One under innovation, we will continuously work towards creating seems pretty very aspirational as opposed to concretizing it, right? So it's like, we will create innovative learning environments. I think, you know, working towards something is not quite the same thing as actually committing to do it. So I think it's stronger if we just say we're going to do it, and then measure ourselves with how successfully we are. And then under the equity, is economic background something different than what's here already? And is that something we would want to include?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Family background was meant to be kind of an inclusive term, but you could say gender, ethnic, family, or economic background, because
that'd be cool.
That's really kind of what we should probably call that out, given that that is, you know, one of our greatest areas of diversity in our district.
I figured it was your subtle way by saying family background, but there are other elements that might refer to also.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to acknowledge the economic background, because that is so often a gap area.
That all seems much more clear now, especially knowing that you'll come back and sort of like I'm looking at reflecting community values. So we're saying we will reflect our community values and create processes that meaningfully engage feedback. So then you'll say, here's the 3 things we're doing, or here's the 1 thing we're gonna, this is how we're doing that.
Right. Yeah. This was the next step that we needed before we could get to that other step.
One other thing, I almost forgot this too. Under facilities, did we want to talk about safety? I mean, aesthetically pleasing is very important, but if facilities is one of our, 6 things, seems like safety, especially these days.
How's that? Our facilities will be safe, aesthetically pleasing, and will reflect a positive learning environment for students, staff, and community members.
Works for me.
Okay. The only thing I want to say about that is I totally agree they need to be safe, especially, if it's crumbling infrastructure. But I really like the idea of spaces that aren't so safe that kids don't get a chance to take risks and learn how to be in the world, that they're hermetically sealed. And so I think they need to be in proper functioning order, but I don't want to see them sealed in bubble wrap as well.
The good news is, Shelley, I don't think we'll have the funding for that.
Okay, so no worries there.
Not that there's even a desire, but even if we wanted to, I don't think we could get there.
But on the flip side, we've talked about the safety needs on our campuses and are addressing some of those. So I think that is important. The F wing at Nordoff, for example, we are looking at the safety aspects. So.
Just going back to the equity, so it's family, does that include, I don't know how to say this, your original language of your home, and your first language?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's in that family, ethnic origin, those 2 things would be covering kind of your home language. We could call out language as well, if you'd like that.
No, I don't.
I mean, one of the things that we can do when we bring back the specifics is say, in terms of equity, these are the things we're focusing on, which this year are really primarily economic and language oriented. They may not always be, but those are the 2 things this year that we're addressing.
Thoughts on gender versus gender identity for equity?
I think it's important that gender is there as well. So I don't know
gender and gender identity.
I think at some point we need to, I mean, this list could be miles long too, right? But whatever people think is important.
Is gender identity inclusive of our gender work?
Is it already encompassed in just the gender there?
Yeah, I feel like when we talk about gender, we broadly mean, not just like looking at boys versus girls achievement, but we mean looking at gender identity, looking at, orientation, looking at all of those things kind of play into that. Gender may not be the right word, but the work that we do in terms of, bathroom remodeling and those kinds of things fall to me under that equity category and are included under broadly gender.
I would even think that gender stereotyping would fall under this, right?
Right.
The same kind of
and
thing.
So if we just want to say gender, that's fine with me. I guess I'm just voicing my opinion that gender identity, and I'm glad to hear that we're looking at that too. That's an important aspect. So whether the language is in there or not is not.
I think if we take the language out, then you're using it to actually encompass more.
Okay, that's fine.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm all for supporting everybody. I went to an office in London and they had, you know, all the letters, but it extended out and there were like 4 or 5 other letters. And I asked about it and nobody could even tell me what they were. So, you know.
I can tell you if you want to know afterwards.
I'm sure you can.
We can hang out. We can have a little tutorial.
Otherwise, I think these are good reflective goals of where the board is at, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was testing this in my mind, like if this was handed to me, could I figure out projects that attach to each one of these? I think they're sufficiently specific that I could do that. I mean, I'm making it up in my head, right? Not real ones, but I mean, I think I could figure out what would support these things. So I like it that way.
I agree.
Yay.
I'm looking at our agenda. Is this? It's not an action item of any kind, but I think we finally put some closure on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you are agreed on these, then we'll continue to bring back additional iteration. So you should expect to see this item on the agenda pretty much every meeting, so we can make some progress every time.
Progress in what the district is doing in those objectives, or progress in changing these every time?
Progress in making sure that we have these kind of fleshed out, right? So we've been working on this for probably 4 or 5 months now, and then now you'll start seeing the objectives or the initiatives coming back. Probably not all at once, given just the scope of all the other work that we're doing, but maybe at the next meeting we'll bring back student achievement and we'll have 4 or 5 things in student achievement. And now that we're looking forward to next year, we could actually, as part of the reopening committee, they may have things around this that we're focusing on, right? So when we're reopening next year, what are we doing around student achievement? Like Angie was just mentioning, our work that we have to do for students who have lost learning, right? That will probably be an initiative for next year that falls under student achievement.
Right.
Well, I want to thank everybody that's worked on this. I think this is actually turning out to be a very nice list and kind of uniquely Ojai. So if I dare say that.
Jane, were you saying something?
Yeah, I would assume too that we have some support for these things already from our groups, our equity group, our whole child group.
Yeah, these are, the guiding coalitions are reflected here in some way or another. Every guiding coalition is reflected here. And we have some of the things, unfortunately, we are not meeting with the guiding coalitions anymore this year, but we already have a list of things that they have asked us to do and think about as a district that will end up as initiatives here. So their work is not lost. It's just going to refocus into priorities for next year. But we know what some of our community priorities are.
Great. Thank you all. 7.5.3 is the board meeting schedule. Looking to schedule a board retreat on June 22nd and possible reschedule of the May 20th budget workshop to May 26th. I hear the May revise is coming out tomorrow at noon, and Capital Advisors has a workshop on the 22nd. Is that right? So this gives us a chance to have all that information by changing that schedule.
I'll move to approve the change of the budget meeting to the 26th and retreat on the 22nd of June.
I'll second.
And all in favor, Michael,
Aye.
Jane,
Sorry, I was busy moving things on my calendar.
that's okay. Kevin,
Yes.
Jane,
Aye.
Shelley, aye. That passes unanimously. Board member reports. Are there any board member reports?
The beams of the Matilda cafeteria are gorgeous. Oh my God, they're so beautiful. It's going to be a great building. I'm so glad we decided to rip down the old one.
That's exciting to hear. I'm glad you went and did a tour. That'll be, I'm looking forward to doing that. Any other board reports? No? Future agenda items, parking lot report. I have one thing I wanted to bring up, and that's it. It's really under Jane's purview, but the Student Advisory Council I wanted to bring up because I know, Jane, you have said to me in the past that you've been hoping for more board support or another board member who would be involved in it. And I think that having that conversation about what things are working well, how you're doing, and what we can, you know, look at for the year.
Thank you for bringing that, because I meant to do that too, because I was thinking, well, you know, next year I'll be president, and I think it's kind of weird that I might be doing both. So ideas for how we might do that. And I also want to revisit how I'll have to look at the initial or the original resolution, but how we actually look at those representatives. I know some districts in the past, just everyone fills out a little, it's like a job application. You have interviews, and then the board or a subcommittee of the board chooses those students. And some districts have the students elected by the student body. And I just think we should revisit that and figure out whether we want to continue doing it the way we have done it the last 2 years.
Right.
No, I love that idea.
I have an item. I want to, you know, we're doing so much online now. I think it would be a good opportunity, you know, sooner than later for the board to get a presentation on how the district approves and vets, you know, online services and, you know, assures privacy and so forth.
Yeah, I would support that. And maybe we need to relook at our policies on online services, or if, I'm not sure that we even have policies. The world changes so fast. I don't know.
We do. We have a process. I'm actually looking at that right now. I'm waiting currently on, I reached out to our JPA to see if they have some additional guidance on online work in terms of like updated relative to liability. I haven't heard back from them yet, but we're working on those pieces right now. They're just coming together. So we'd be happy to do a board presentation on that. Potentially not on the 26th though, since we'll be trying to get all of the data ready for the budget. Like the budget is going to be really the next focus from tomorrow till that 26th, so that we can have the most information available for you.
Yeah, I think that meeting should be just solely budget, in my opinion.
It will now also include potentially the Valley Oak Charter piece, since we tabled it from today. But other than that, those are the two items.
All right, are there any other future agenda items? If not, that brings us to the end of our meeting, and that is adjourned. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Take care.